Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a new series that I am launching. And this series is a very special series called Expert Interviews with Ken. This is a series where I basically interview other people who are experts in their own fields, whatever their profession is, and we get a chance to hear their story and what it is they're doing for people. So, with that, let's dive into today's guest on Expert Interviews with Ken. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to just another episode of Expert Interviews with Ken. And today I have the privilege of interviewing Claudia. And Claudia is the founder of My Cancer Diaries, a blog that supports newly diagnosed women and their caregivers, particularly those with young children, as they navigate breast cancer. A breast cancer survivor turned thriver and mother of three, Claudia combines her personal journey with a commitment to providing valuable resources and emotional support. With a background in healthcare, marketing, and sales, Claudia leverages her communication and strategic skills to enhance her blog's impact. Her focus on women's health drives her passion for addressing the unique challenges faced by women undergoing cancer treatments. My Cancer Diary offers practical advice on treatment, managing side effects, emotional well being, and balancing cancer with family life, fostering a supportive community for those on similar journeys. Welcome, Claudia. I am so excited to have you on my interview today on my show for this. And so, what I want to do is just dive right into your story. Please share your story and everything that's wrapped in there because I think you have a very powerful story to share.
Yeah, hi Ken. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. So, as you already said, I'm Claudia. I'm a mother of three, and I'm a cancer survivor as well. I'm in a 2 year. I just hit my 2 year mark, surviving breast cancer. But I would say I'm not just a survivor. I like to call myself a thriver. And my journey taught me the power of whole person healing, self care, community, but also the importance of self advocacy. And that led me to creating the blog, My Cancer Diaries, where I help others navigating a breast cancer diagnosis while also raising small kids.
Mhm.
Even though I'm not a doctor, I offer tips and tricks and resources on my blog to help others fit like wellness into their daily life while also balancing it all as a parent. And just a little bit about my journey. So I was a busy mother of three young kids, and I was very much focused on meeting their needs, managing their activities, and always living a little bit also in the future. And not when I'm reflecting back, I think something that I realize now, I was not really present in the actual moment. And also when my youngest was 3 at the time, and my older two kids were 5 and 7, I thought about going back to work. And then my whole world was turned upside down by a breast cancer diagnosis when I
Mm.
went in for a mammogram. And that was pretty traumatic and affected my whole family, as you can imagine.
Mhm. Yeah, I can definitely imagine that. So, tell me a little bit about some of those things, some of the struggles you went through, and also because I remember as we were talking previously, I remember you telling me you had quite an interesting journey with doctors, conventional doctors, and all of the things in that system. And so, yeah, tell me a bit about that. How much of a struggle was it? And then what was your journey like going through the what do I want to say, mainstream medical system, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. So when I went in for that mammogram, I was 41 at the time. I just had my first mammogram at age 40, which was completely clear. And then at 41, I had another mammogram because my OBGYN, she did find two lumps. And once they confirmed on the mammogram that something was suspicious. They kept me there and they went ahead and did a biopsy. And a few days later, even though the radiologist was telling me, you're healthy, you're young, and I thought too, I was the picture of health. I had a pretty good diet, was always exercising, and then I got that call that I had breast cancer, which was devastating for me. So after that, my treatments were I had a mastectomy and I needed as well 4 rounds of chemotherapy and 10 years of hormone therapy. And one of the biggest struggles that I had was really in the beginning. It started when I had my first appointment with the breast surgeon, and I had so many questions that I needed answer for, and she only wanted to talk to me about two things that she had in the toolbox. So very focused, like, well, I can offer you a mastectomy or a lumpectomy, but I wanted to know so much more about it. And at that point, I always thought, doctors know best. And I thought, well, I can't just change my doctor. But then I think I started to trust more my gut feeling because her bedside
Mhm.
manners were not that great. Because I wanted also my husband to be involved, that he wanted to know, and I felt like there was not much respect for dad. And I actually ended up firing her and reaching out to a friend and asking to be seen by another breast surgeon. So that was kind of like my first hiccup. And with that other breast surgeon, I had a much better connection in general. But I think that's not the end of the journey where I faced struggles. When I finished, when I was done with my mastectomy at the beginning, I thought, this is gonna be it. I should be fine. I'm just gonna jump back to my life as normal and the end of my breast cancer journey. Well, things came very different because the good thing was I didn't have cancer in my lymph nodes. So they always check that when they do a surgery to see if the cancer has started to spread. But they also do with the type of breast cancer that I had, it was hormone receptor positive. They also check for they do a complicated genomic test to see what your chance of recurrence is. That means like the chance of the cancer recurring and if you do benefit from chemotherapy. And in my case, I had a quite high chance of the cancer returning. And it was kind of a no-brainer for me to go through chemotherapy. But I thought I'm probably just gonna do well. I'm young, I'm strong, and I can do this. I mean, of course, it was very devastating just to know that I had to go through this, but I had I was kind of I was sure that I should go get through this and probably with minimal side effects. Well, things were very different. So I went in for my first cycle and I checked all the boxes of the side effects that you can have. And I was devastated about that. And the next time I talked to my oncologist, she was like, well, you probably need a dose reduction because, that's just too much. So they call them toxicities that happens to your body. That means like you have too many side effects. I really checked all those boxes. But then on the other hand, I wanted to have, the best chances of the cancer not returning. So I wanted a full dose of chemotherapy. And that's when I really started to dig into researching like what did other breast cancer survivors do to get through this smoothly. So I started to look into alternative treatments to add to my conventional treatments. And that's some information that my doctor didn't really talk about.
Hmm.
Also, like in general, like even being seen by a health professional, as you can imagine, like I started, I started to get like slightly depressed just having to go through this, and my anxiety was really high. So that was one big struggle. And then when I started, I think a big turning point also was I started reading the book Radical Remission. So those are it's a oncology researcher that interviewed cancer patients, and they went into unexpected remission by changing their lifestyle. So they started changing their diet. And they all had 7 factors in common. I have to say so one of them, so they might have done things a little bit different, but they started changing their diet. They started, exercising, and they also started to embrace more community support and increase positive emotion, decreasing managing stress. So I think in the process, I actually started doing that subconsciously, because I started reaching out to, reading other survivor stories and the reading like how else can I support my body to get through this. So slowly, I started adjusting my diet going into the next cycle. And I said, I told my oncologist, let's try this again. And I adjust my diet. Let me adjust a few things and try to do things that at least I can control on my side. And I did. So as a whole family, I think so that's kind of like what we're talking. Like I had that support from my family. We
Hmm.
started juicing. We started tweaking my dad was already healthy, but I tried to reach out for foods that really could support my body even better. So I started looking at food as it would be medicine. So we started to integrate that into our lifestyle. And I started, even though I was tired, and some days I really had that what they talk about cancer fatigue, and that was crazy for someone who is as active as me. I And some days I didn't have the strength to lift the blanket off or not even call my husband because I was just so exhausted. I mean, even like going to the bathroom, and that's something that people can't really imagine that haven't gone through this. But then as I was changing my diet and reading up on alternative things to do, um, I realized that with the second cycle, I didn't have any of the side effects. As I said, I changed my diet. I kept
Hmm.
exercising. I did, I did, embrace more of that support, like that community support. And I had the whole family on board with me. And I started meditating to decrease my anxiety. And one other thing I did, and at the time it sounded almost ridiculous to me, I also started drinking beet juice. Why? Because I just told you I was so exhausted, like even lifting that blanket off. And I started reading that athletes take beet juice to increase their performance. I was like, well, if it doesn't help, it's not going to hurt. So I also started drinking like a daily beet juice shot. And with the next infusion, um, I said to my oncologist, let me try again. And I suffered none of the side effects.
Hmm.
So from having all of the side effects, I didn't have any of them just by changing a little bit, tweaking my diet, researching foods that could support my health, adding that beet juice. And another thing that I was doing during the infusions, I started sucking on ice because I start reading up that, having ice in your mouth, so the blood vessels restrict, and that's where the blood is not going to go. Your chemo is not going to go in there. So one side effects of chemo is like you have mouth sores, and I couldn't even swallow anymore. I was swollen from all of that. So I didn't even have mouth sores. So it's all these things that I had, and I eventually had also more energy, which was strange because with each subsequent cycle, your energy should decrease. For me, it was the opposite. I changed all these things, and also I think my anxiety came down. And at the end, with my health insurance, it was like a month later they finally found a therapist, but in the meantime, I already found other ways to reduce my anxiety, which I started to meditate and, to start, you know, just doing like deep breathing. I mean, things that I've never done before, but obviously all these things subconsciously helped. And then when I start, digging into that book and connecting to other survivors, I kind of realized that I did a lot of things that other survivors did as well. So I went back to my oncologist and told her all these things that I did. And yeah, she was just kind of like, and I thought, you know, that she's just kind of gonna not take me very serious about these things. And I said, well, I mean, if it helps for you, but she didn't really even ask me what I really did. She was surprised though that I didn't suffer any of the side effects. And that's where I really realized like how important it is to support your body with good foods, and how important it is to keep exercising. Even though I walked every single day, some days my bones hurt as well from all the chemo that I got, and I pushed through. And after all, I did feel actually pretty good. I mean, not great, but I felt pretty good. Definitely, I never spent a whole day in bed anymore like I did at the first cycle. And that also, as a family, it helped us to keep our routine steady. So it was overall better. That energy that I had left, I could use it to play with my kids and be with my loved ones.
Hmm. You know, such a powerful story. A couple of things I wrote down as you were sharing some of the things that you did yourself is, I was thinking, I'm like, okay, resilience, resourceful. I mean, these are two words that popped in my head as, you were sharing the research you did and the changes you made in your diet and adding in the beet juice, and just continuing to switch things around and just continuing to do your research. Not a lot of people are as resourceful and resilient as you were through that journey. Um, I mean, I got to be really honest with you. Most people, when it comes to cancer, they kind of just give in to the medical system and it's just like, well, it is what it is. I'm just going to have to deal
Hmm.
with these side effects. I'm just going to have to deal with this. You didn't fall down that path. You kind of did at first, but then you were just like, no, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm tired of this,
Yeah,
and you became resourceful. You started digging, you started doing your
yeah,
own research, you started learning how to use food as medicine.
yeah,
And, for those listening here, I really, as a health coach myself, I'm a weight loss coach, and I'll speak a little bit more into that towards the end of this interview here. But I really resonate with that because food really is medicine, or it should be medicine. And what I mean
yeah,
by that is you've got the mainstream food system out there that is literally keeping people sick, stuck, and overweight because that's how that system makes money. But when you finally start stepping out of that system and you start seeing the foods that God has designed for what it is and the nutritional value that it is, food really is medicine.
yeah,
What you have to do in the food system, though, is get out of this way of thinking of these pre-made foods, these boxed foods, these packaged foods,
yeah,
the foods that that big food system has made, and start consuming foods with minimal or one ingredient. And I feel like that's exactly what you did. You got out of that system. You started paying attention to ingredients You
Hmm.
started buying things with minimal or just one ingredient and eating the foods that God has designed for you, God
Hmm.
that God has designed for us. And look at what happened. Your side effects decreased. They actually went away. You had more energy. You not only conquered cancer, but you I would say three-fourths of that journey, you pretty much punched a hole in it. You were just like,
Yeah.
boom, I'm not gonna take
Yeah.
this, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, resourceful and resilient. And
Yeah. That was also my attitude. It was like, I'm not gonna go down the path, because what I realized quickly after I started chemo, from someone I had never taken drugs my whole life. I mean, maybe a Tylenol here and there. And, suddenly I'm this cancer patient and I have this cabinet full of medicine. I mean, really prescription meds. I mean, you name it. It was a big cabinet full of stuff. And every time I had a side effect, my conventional doctor was like, well, if you have this side effect, let's treat it with another medication. So that's how I realized how the system goes. But nobody, so as I said, like, I'm very thankful for Western medicine. It did save my life, but I think there's not much awareness or training out there that you can add complementary treatments to your traditional treatment, and you will do so much better coping with all these side effects.
Mhm.
And that's something I didn't want to go to down that path and keep taking one medication that helps for this, but then adding another because now I have this other side effect, and then we're adding another so it's chain effect. So you keep your medicine cabinet full. And also, what I realized, and that's kind of the sad part of it, like, there is so much that goes into curing chronic illnesses. So it's not just cancer,
Mhm.
but it's like nobody really looks at looks like at the cause of it. And because
Right.
there's not money, there's not much there's not much money to be made there. You're
Right.
saying it. So now someone, of course, could come to me and was like, hey, you were already the picture of health. Why did you get cancer in the first place? I did get that question too. And, my answer to this is like, yeah, you know what? I've been healthy, but I think it helped that I was going in there so healthy. And that's why also I call myself a thriver today. I was able to get through treatment actually really well, and I don't have a decreased quality of life being at the other end of treatment. I mean, I'm still on hormone therapy for 10 years, but I'm doing well even with that. Why? Because I adjusted also after the active treatment ended. So the active treatment, they call it, all the surgeries, the chemotherapy and all of that. Hormone therapy is like, well, once you go into survivorship with the type of breast cancer that I had, hormone therapy, I changed my lifestyle. I tweaked it even further, and I realized, this is not even my lifestyle; it's part of the treatment. So, and there are many, many studies out there that even like exercising will decrease your chance of recurrence. It actually slashes it by 40%. So I did go see an integrative oncologist who told me that unfortunately there are just not that many studies out there that we have proof that certain foods or whatever it is, you name it, because there's not much money to be made there.
Right.
It goes all into curing things, and that's really the sad part of it.
It really is. So much so, I actually wrote an entire article on my website. It's on the blog portion of my website that talks about what happens when you listen to most doctors' advice. Because the thing about it is that's a system where, and don't get me wrong, I got to preface this. So, there are doctors out there that really their heart intentions are in the right place. They just don't know that they've been through a schooling system that is broken, outdated, and most doctors, if they get any nutritional schooling at all, maybe it's one semester in their entire medical career. But most
Yes.
doctors don't even get that. What
Yeah.
they're trained with is, oh, you have this, okay, take this. Oh, you have this, okay, take this. And see,
Hmm.
the thing of it is, and I'll come back to my article that I wrote in just a minute, but the thing about it is they also get a kickback. Every prescription, almost every prescription they prescribe, they get a little bit of kickback. That also goes for prescriptions around vaccines and different things like that. They get kickbacks for that. And so it's just, I don't know, it's crazy. So the article that I wrote basically talks about what happens when you actually listen to most doctors' advice. And I make the point in that article that, you know, it is true. Most people, they follow their doctors, right? Well, if the doctor's advice was really that helpful, why are we still continuing to see a rise in things like obesity, in things like overweight issues, in things like coronary heart disease, in things like, I mean, let me throw this stat out there, this one alone. 18 million people die from coronary heart disease every single year. Now, if doctors' advice really was helping, why aren't we seeing declines on these numbers? You've got 45% of the world's population that's overweight or obese.
Yeah.
45%. That is 3.82 billion people.
Yeah. I think one thing is just, the doctor is one thing, but the doctor kind of wants to please also patient. So you have to also advocate for yourself, and you have to realize that you have to put in the hard work.
It's
So is it easy now? I was talking about like all these lifestyle changes that I continue to do, even in my survivorship. Like, I'm still on hormone treatment, and as I said, I'm grateful for conventional medicine, but I'm putting in a lot of work myself to not be on other pills. So medical menopause means also that, I suffer bone density. I eventually, like, my bone density is going down, and that happens to every woman that goes into menopause. So now for me as a cancer survivor, we could add bone infusions to strengthen the bones, which has again other side effects. But one thing to prevent it too is lifting weights, right? But that's
yes.
work. Do you think I like always to go to the gym? So you have to make it a priority. I mean, I think that's the thing. That doesn't mean, but at least I'm someone who says, at least let me try XYZ first before I'm really at the last resource at the drug. But would it be easier to just swallow a pill? Of course, it would be easier to just
Yes.
swallow a
Mhm.
pill, because lifestyle changes, and I'm sure you realize that in your journey too. Like, you have to be really set, and you have to make it a priority. And it's not always easy. It's hard. It's hard to make lifestyle changes. And you know, and another thing is, like, one of the side effects of my hormone treatment I am on is weight gain. Why? Because in menopause, your metabolism slows down. So now I do need to take those medications because I don't want my cancer recur. But if I keep gaining weight, one side effect again is, like, if I have a higher chance of the cancer recurring, and I'm at risk for heart disease. So I do need to make something that doesn't happen. So yeah, exercise and lifting weights, that's one of them, and it also helps mentally. But it's just
Yes.
like, I think the patient also has to be willing to put in the hard work. It goes both ways. If the patient is not willing, and you're kind of like, oh, just give me a pill, then you're in that cycle. I think it's 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 both ways. And I think you need to find also the doctor. Maybe you have to, you know choose a second or third opinion, someone that aligns more with your ideas. So there are doctors that are more, they have more
Holistic.
they're more open. Yeah, they're more holistic and have a open mind. But most conventional doctors, just as you said, like, they didn't give me any advice. Like, so when I went back and I was now in survivorship, I was like, well, what now? What do I do? I mean, do I just go back and do the same thing as I did before? I want to be in control. And there's so many studies that, lifestyle does matter. It's not that it doesn't matter. That how much you exercise, even like with cancer recurrence, like I can talk from my own experience. So there are studies out there that exercise and diet and all the other things, they do matter. And only 10% of the cancer are actually due to a genetic mutation. 90% is lifestyle. It's
Mhm.
environmental, but it's not
Absolutely.
well, and it's not well researched. That's the thing, so, but I'm also someone like, well, if it doesn't help, it doesn't hurt, right? And it
Mhm.
makes you feel better too. That's the other thing. Like, your side effects are much better. You're coping. Even if you go the route and have to take a certain medication, you cope much better if you with the side effects, if you do exercise, and if you otherwise really healthy. But you do have to make it a priority, and that's hard work.
It is, and you mentioned something in the beginning of that, I think really speaks volumes. So you mentioned, you have to put in the work, and you did the research, you put in the work. And the thing of it is a lot of us, not a lot of us, that's not the way I want to put it. A lot of people nowadays, they are so used to just being told, oh, red meat's bad for you. Oh, you should eat low fat. And just because it came from a celebrity on TV or some kind of news leader on TV or whatever, people are listening to it, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like part of the problem is definitely the fact that people aren't asking the questions anymore. People aren't doing the research
Yeah,
anymore.
I
People aren't
agree.
looking at the data. That's part of the problem because one of the reasons why you figured out your way out of the system is because you put in the work. You put in the research. You did the back end work. You asked the questions. You asked the hard questions. You started looking at the data, you know, and you found your answers. And you are definitely a thriving cancer survivor, 100%, because of that, because of your work, because of your effort. That's what I think a lot of people need to get back to nowadays is looking at the data for themselves, doing asking the hard questions, going back, thinking critically, thinking logically. Don't just take someone's advice, and kind of going back to the whole doctor thing. I don't know, it was about a year and a half ago. I had my mom switch from her conventional doctor to more of a well rounded holistic doctor. All I have to say is, what a freaking difference. Wow. I'm hearing things out of this new doctor's mouth that I've never heard out of a conventional doctor. I mean, this holistic doctor, she's telling my mom, you need to get more sun, you need to ground yourself, you need to this, and I'm just like, regular doctors don't talk about that, but these are natural sources that we need to be plugged into, if you will, for sure. And grounding is definitely important. I don't do enough of
Hmm.
it. I mean, I'll admit that I don't do enough of it. But getting in that sun each day, a little bit of vitamin D, 15, 20
Yes.
minutes, that's all you need. People nowadays, they're so like twisted and just like a sunscreen and all this other stuff. No, that sunscreen is actually causing damage to your skin. It's not doing you any real help. And there are natural sunscreens you can get that aren't going to do damages, ones that are made from pure 100% pure beef tallow and everything else. Do your own research on that for sure. But, I mean, I don't want to go off on a trail here, but oh my gosh, so I mean, that's something towards the end of that article that I wrote that I encourage everybody to do. And I even gave a link on how to find a holistic doctor, well-rounded holistic doctor. But to be honest, I just got tired of every time my mom went to her doctor, whether it was to get approved for a surgery or whatever it was, because she had an ankle surgery. And then after that, she fell and broke her femur bone and had to go in and get a surgery for that. And I think the femur bone was the last straw because her doctor was, conventional and her doctor well intended. She's got a very sweet heart. and everything else. But her doctor started giving her language like, okay, so you need to limit your meat and, limit your saturated fats, and your cholesterol is getting a little high, and what's going on with your blood pressure and all this other stuff, and leading my mom towards pills. And my mom is a type of person that's really nervous when she goes to see the doctor, if you will. She gets, well, the
Mhm.
conventional doctor, rather. She doesn't get that nervous anymore. And as a result, every time she went to the doctor's office, her blood pressure was always high. And then she would come home and we'd track it for a couple weeks and it would return back to normal. So this last time, though, her doctor threatened that if she didn't get her blood pressure under control, she wasn't going to approve her surgery. And my mom had just gone through all these tests and everything else, so that kind of that didn't help the situation, because now my mom's stressed out about that. And I decided, you know what, oh, I'm tired of this. So I asked a friend a really good friend that I know at the gym, who's got a lot of good resources. I'm like, do you know of a different, like, holistic doctor that we can get? And so we were referred to one, and all I got to say is, what a difference. She took a look at my mom's, results, cholesterol, everything, and she's like, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And no, you don't need to limit meat. No, you don't need to, limit saturated fats. And I kind of felt like, finally, somebody who has actually done the back end work, somebody that finally is speaking the truth, and it's just something to be said. So, I mean, I'm saying all that to anybody listening. Be careful with conventional doctor's advice. Just be careful. Do your research. Do the deep diving. Find the truth, like Claudia here did. Find the truth on your own. Put in that work on the back end, because you could save your own life and save a bunch of money and a bunch of headache doing it too.
Yeah. I mean, one thing to add to, or if you don't have a great fit with your doctor, don't be afraid to search a second or a third opinion. I think that's always someone that aligns more with your ideas. So there are, I think to that medicine, that's something I realized going through this journey. Medicine is not black or white. It's like there are gray zones. And I think like I felt bad. I remember like how I felt bad like the first time I went to that and I saw that breast surgeon, and I just didn't feel comfortable with her. I mean, sometimes it's not because they don't know it's not that I thought she did something wrong or said something wrong, but it was not a good fit. I think just like your mom, maybe because there's not a good fit, her blood pressure goes up because I think it has to work in that sense too, and especially if you have a serious disease like cancer, where you don't know what the outcome is going to be. Go get that second or third opinion. Don't hesitate, and there are organizations that even can support you to get second and third opinions, and they will pay for it. I mean, so those resources are out there. So some of these that I've used, yeah, I list them on my blog too. So don't be afraid to do that, and take things that doctor says with a grain of salt, and look if you can add alternative treatments to your conventional treatment.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. The other thing too, you know, I know, like, when it comes to holistic foods, and I know when it comes to, like, fighting the cancer and doing it in a holistic way, one of the key things, and this is something I've learned from a few interviews I've done, not just on expert interviews with Ken, but Total Truth Show. It's a show that I co-host with a partner of mine. We've interviewed a few cancer survivors now, and there's definitely a couple of them that mention carbs and sugar are food to cancer. And so learning ways to take those out of your life and tracking those as much as possible can actually starve cancer and can actually put it in complete remission, just by doing those two things, completely. Um, completely taking carbs and sugar out of your eating routine. Um, Now, to some people, that might sound extreme, but when you're dealing with cancer, extreme measures do come into play. You've got to, really watch the types of foods you're eating. Because as I said in the beginning, food definitely is medicine, for sure. What kind of food you eat, though, how it was prepared, and what's involved with it is also in play as well in that ball game. So that's why it's also important to consume foods that have not been processed, consume foods with one ingredient or with minimal ingredients and pretty much no process. And I think that's a real important thing when it comes to dealing with cancer.
Yeah, I think so too. At one point that you mentioned, so I don't believe to cut all the carbs out, but it's more about like what carbs are you still eating? Like,
Mm.
are you eating processed carbs or are you eating, whole grains? Are you eating, brown rice, quinoa, or some barley, farro? So there's a bunch of other grains that I didn't know of, but look into those. So those are really good grains, or sweet potatoes, um, all that kind of good. So actually foods that, that don't come out of a package. I think so there is evidence too that, so it's not about like that processed meat. So everything that's been processed or man-made, processed meats, they are linked to, to cancer. So there is research there about that. But it's a different thing if you look at grass-fed red meat. So I'm not someone who is extreme in my diet, but I look like that, that where does the meat come from? Like, am I buying organic chicken, or am I, so it's not like, or the carbs, what kind of carbs are you eating? I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the main thing to make a difference about it. And everybody knows about, fruit and vegetables, but the other thing is like, people then think, oh, I gotta cut out all the carbs. Well, it depends really what carbs you're cutting out. So there are good carbs, like maybe
Yes.
white rice is not the best one, maybe brown rice or quinoa or sweet potatoes. So those are, good carbs. They're slowly processed too. So I think that's kind of like where you have to differentiate, and I think that makes a big difference in your diet too.
100%. So I mean, you'll never hear anybody that works with me will never hear out of my mouth, you know, don't eat any more carbs. You'll never hear that out of my mouth because I don't really think that that's realistic. But I do know some cancer people that I've interviewed before in the past. They've cut out like all the sugars and all the carbs. They went extreme. When it comes to like a typical health journey, I don't think that's necessary. So, yeah, pay attention to the types of sugars you're eating and different things like that. There is no essential carb, though. There really isn't. There is no essential carb. Can carbs be useful? Oh, absolutely. When strategically placed in your diet and in your eating routine, absolutely carbs can be very useful. If you go to the gym, you have a rigorous routine, and you know you've depleted your energy stores and you need a fast way to bring back up those energy stores. A sweet potato paired with a great high quality protein is excellent for returning those energy levels, those energy stores back to normal level. Absolutely. But like you said, it's the processed carbs, it's the processed sugars, it's
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
processed part of it that's not, you know, and like I said, there is no essential carb. And some people might ask the question, well, how much sugar can I have? Or how much sugar, should I have or should I allow? The honest truth answer is zero. Okay, but again, that's not realistic. I strive on teaching sustainability when it comes to a weight loss journey. It's got to be sustainable. So completely cutting some of these things out, I don't think that's sustainable. And plus, you
Hmm.
got to live a little, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm a health coach. I'm a weight loss coach. I've maintained my weight for 6+ years now. And I have times where I let my hair down. Well, I know, and figure of speech there. Um, so, but I have times where it's just like I'll go and I'll enjoy myself. And that's what life's about. When you have a solid eating routine, a baseline, a good foundation, you can have moments like that where you let your hair down a little bit, you enjoy, life a little bit,
Hmm.
and that's okay. Your body can actually handle that.
Yeah.
So again, it's about sustainability and finding what's going to work for you. And but I definitely think in a cancer case though, things might look a little bit more extreme than the typical person just maybe losing weight. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it can be. I'm not like, as I said, like my diet just I tweaked it, but what I focus on is like getting really, whole foods in my diet. So no package, no process. I mean, that's the main thing. I'm not extreme about like, if there's a party and I want to eat just what you said, if I want to eat a hot dog, I'm gonna eat that hot dog. If I want to drink a glass of wine once in a while, so I've not never been like much of a drinker, but I definitely like occasionally I was drinking like a glass here and there, and now that's really occasionally. So if there's a special celebration and I feel like drinking a cocktail, so that's not going to make a difference. Just it's more about like you have to choose a lifestyle that you can sustain as
Yes.
well. And I actually don't believe in anything that's extreme either because you have to be able to maintain it. And if you cannot, but it's also once you started, so I used to like, I used to eat definitely like more sweet. I mean, not like a ton of sweets, but definitely more like, once here and there, like every week, like a sweet from the bakery. So then like decreasing my sugar, like not cutting that out and I just do dark chocolate, a little piece of dark chocolate. I'm from Switzerland
Mm.
originally. Of course, I have to eat chocolate. So I eat, a dark piece of dark chocolate. But once you do that, it's also the less sweet you eat, then when you go back and I go to the bakery and I take something sweet and it's homemade, it's not processed or anything, but it feels like so overpowering the sugar that's in there.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
you get used to it too. It's a slow process, but you eventually you will get used to it and you don't even crave it anymore. I think that's one part of the journey too. Like once you change your lifestyle, I think like you don't even want it so bad. I mean, I remember like I really wanted that sweet like every single week, it was part of the routine. And now I don't even crave sweets. And even though everybody told me, you know what, even the doctors told me like when it was time to go into for my reconstruction, everybody told me like, oh, your metabolism is going to slow down. You're going to gain at least an average 10 to 20 pounds because you're in menopause now. And that's what's going to happen. And people told me you're going to have cravings. You know what? None of that really happened. I mean, I'm 2 years out and but because I've maintained a certain lifestyle and that works for me and that can look different for someone else, but I'm not really extreme in anything, but it takes a lot of time. I do make it a priority to cook whole foods and it's time consuming, especially when you also have young kids.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's a couple key things you mentioned there too. So one I want to speak to, it's really key that you mentioned slow process. A lot of people, when they're on a weight loss journey or, just kind of trying to eat healthier, what they don't realize is that it is a slow process. Most people,
Yeah.
when they go on a weight loss journey, they're like, okay, I'm just going to go on this diet. I'm going to lose the weight. And they approach that with such a microwave mindset is the way I'll put it. They just want to lose the weight quickly and be done with it, but it does not. Doing it that way actually does not handle the underlying issues. And so what eventually happens, they always gain the weight back, right? So I mean, that's
Hmm.
one. when you're going on that kind of a journey of overall health and, reaching that weight goal, whatever it is, it must be a sustainable process, number one. It must be sustainable for the long haul. Again, speaking to the slow process, as you mentioned.
Hmm.
And eventually, if your eating routine is good and dialed in, meaning you're not eating processed foods, you're not eating the processed sugars as much and all that other stuff, what you're going to find is your taste buds are going to change.
Yeah.
The things you're craving is going to change. Excuse me. You're going to find that eventually your body's going to reset back to where it was originally designed to be. And the thing is, yeah, you were told that you were going to gain an extra 10 to 20 pounds while you were going through your menopause. Why? Because that's what most people experience because they are in a matrix food system that causes that to happen because they're consuming processed foods that's further messing with their hormones and further
Yes.
messing with the signals going to the brain and neural pathways and different things like that. So, yeah, typically a person does gain 10 to 20 pounds, but it's not necessarily because what they think it is. See, menopause doesn't need to mean that you gain 10 to 20 pounds. If you're eating the
No.
foods that God designed, if you're eating foods that are whole foods, minimal ingredients, not processed, you're going to be able to maintain that. Because why? Because your hormones aren't all screwed up from the processed food system. One other thing that I'll speak to on that is that processed food system, the big food companies, what a lot of people don't realize, and it's starting to come out more and more nowadays, which is really, really encouraging to see. What a lot of people don't realize is in the 1980s and the 1990s, the cigarette and tobacco companies were starting to lose money because people were discovering how bad cigarettes were for them. So they were losing money. They had to turn somewhere. So they started actually buying up these big food companies, and their top scientists and researchers came with them. So the same top scientists and researchers that made cigarettes addictive now switched to our food and made our
Hmm.
food their science experiment, which means the packaged and boxed and pre-made foods now are being made to be addictive and draw you into that system. I've read a couple articles now that say that they literally design food to bring you to that perfect bliss point. Not below, not under, just enough, the bliss point to keep you coming back for more. And eventually your taste buds change, your cravings change, the
Hmm.
things that you're eating, all of that. You got hunger issues that start to arise, you got snacking issues. Then, because it brings you to that bliss point, it feels so good that it's also tapping into the pleasure centers of your brain, right? So now we're drawing in emotional eating. And a lot of people beat themselves up over emotional eating, and they do not realize what the root cause actually is. It's their system that has caused that. And so I think it's really important for people to realize just how those foods are designed. And I'll be honest with you. Yes, they taste good, but that's because they're designed to taste good. And it's not
Hmm.
real food. It's bioengineered, it's GMO'd. It's, oh my gosh. I could go on for hours talking about that stuff. But just to make a point there, you guys, that food system out there, I don't care how healthy something touts it to be on the packaging. I don't care
Yeah.
how great it looks on the front of the box. Turn the freaking thing over and make the discovery that it's not healthy for you.
Yeah,
Because
because it has a long list of ingredients that you've never heard the name. So that's something else like I started doing, like really reading the labels. That's something like the details. So yeah, I did buy not a whole bunch of packaged food, but it's also, hard with little kids, like, they have all these snacks that all the other kids have, but I started really like reading the labels, like even if you switch dairy over to, soy milk and then or all almond milk, and you think you're doing yourself a service because it's healthier, but then you start reading the labels and it has like, a bunch of additives and gums and I don't know what names that you've never heard. So that's something I learned. I really read the labels, like the less ingredients it has, and if you understand what it means, then it's kind of okay, that's now for me a buy. If there's names
Yep.
in there that I don't know how to spell or read, that's a no. It is also work because, now you're the weird person who goes in the supermarket, but it's like and it's something that, it doesn't have to happen just like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a very slow process that I switched out certain things too, like, eliminating more of these things. And I didn't just do it, for example, with the foods. I also did it with my personal care products. I did it with my cleaning products. So the same thing that's in the food industry, we have that also in the cosmetics,
Yes.
where they put so there's a lot of hormone disruptors in
Yep.
there.
100%.
And 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 that's another thing, like I really started reading the labels. And there are also certain apps that I've started to use. I don't know if you're familiar about the EVG app, the environmental working group app.
I'm gonna have
So
to write that down. EVG, E as an elephant, V as in Victor, G as in go.
No, E is an elephant, W, G. It's the Environmental Working Group, and it's an independent group that really take all the products apart and, and scan them for, if they add certain additives, and then they do a rating based on that.
EW what?
EWG, G
G.
like goat.
There we
Hmm.
go. I'm gonna have to check out that app because
Yeah.
yeah, I am aware of the cosmetics and I'm aware of the cleaning products and different things like that. Cleaning products, that's kind of another level that I am in process with in my own home here. And again, it is a process because when you start realizing all the things, it can be very overwhelming to some
I
people.
know, yeah, but yes, it is overwhelming, but you don't have to do it all overnight. That's the
Yep.
thing. Like I did this process of over, we're talking like a 2-year stretch where I
Yes.
slowly started, cleaning up even more my diet. I started cleaning even more but it's like, one at a time. It's not like you have to toss everything out, right? But if it's time to renew certain things or, switch, I don't know, like let's say like even like kitchen utensils. I eliminated a lot of plastic. So once my cutting board was done, instead of buying another plastic board, I switched to wood. I mean,
Yes.
stuff like that. You do it one thing at a time. You don't, and because otherwise it's super overwhelming.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's also everybody has, I think it's also about making empowered choices. What is right for me doesn't have to mean that's the way that, you want to adjust your lifestyle.
That's true. It's very true. Oh, Claudia, wow. We talked about a wide range of things on this episode. I am really, really excited with everything that we've talked about. It's been such a pleasure having you on expert interviews with Ken. What a powerful episode, you guys. There's so many nuggets that was thrown out there on today's episode. You guys, I would encourage you go back and re-listen to this, go back, take notes. There's a lot of good nuggets that we talked about here. So, in kind of wrapping things up, Claudia, what I'd like to do is ask you, what is the best way that somebody can get in contact with you if they want to connect with you or, they want to learn more about, your journey and they kind of want to see what you have to offer as far as the expertise as being a person that has survived and a person that not just conquered cancer. I feel like you punched it in the face. How can people get in touch with you to be able to either work
Yeah.
with you or to find out more?
People can get in touch with me either over Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram, where I share tips and tricks and resources how to navigate a breast cancer journey while also being a busy parent. But as well, like everything that goes beyond cancer. I mean, everything that we talked about, like the lifestyle changes that happen. So I'm still growing my Instagram. So there will be many aspects that I'm planning on covering, certain switch that I was talking about, like, cleaning up my diet and the cleaning products, and as well like the personal care products and what that looks like. But in general, also my blog, which is mycancerdiaries.com, where people can find details. I mean, so maybe someone is not directly touched by breast cancer, but maybe they are a caregiver or they're trying to support a friend. I list a ton of resources and tips and tricks how to navigate a breast cancer journey while also being a parent, and by empowering, and I like that, by empowering others
Mhm.
with their choices.
Awesome, awesome. And just for those who would like to connect with her, so her blog, I will be listing that in the description below this video. I will also be listing her handle for Instagram, which I'm actually just gonna say right here. So it's at my underscore C as in cat, A as in apple, N as in Nancy, C as in cat, E as in elephant, R as in Ralph, D as in dog, I as in ill, A as in apple, R as in Ralph, I as in ill, E as in elephant, S as in Sam. So that's at my underscore cancer diaries, one word. And you can find her on Instagram there. And then also, do you want me to include your email address as well? You sent that to me in the email. Do you want me to include that in the description as well?
Yes, absolutely, please.
Okay, so that also will be in the description below on how to get in touch with Claudia. All right, so you guys heard me allude to the fact that I am a weight loss coach and I've lost a considerable amount of weight. What you don't know is that I have a phenomenal, intensive, extensive educational mini boot camp series running right now. And now is the time. Hey, look, we're going into the holidays right now, and you've got New Year's coming up, or maybe it's in the middle of the summer when you finally get a hold of this video. Who knows? But it's always the right time. And so here's what I'm going to say. So I've lost 62 and a half pounds, but here's the catch. I've kept it off for 6+ years now, all without a diet and having that be sustainable. I honestly really don't even think about it. And so I am giving away my 3 secrets. I'm giving away my 3 secrets to finally help you to lose that last 20 pounds, to finally help you break those sugar addictions, to finally help you break free from those hunger issues, sugar addictions, snacking issues, all of that. In this boot camp series, you'll be equipped with an empowered mindset. You're going to be equipped to spot the industry lies and avoid the common pitfalls. You're also going to be equipped to see past the marketing deceptions that big food puts on their packages. They put it all over their packaging. They tout something to be healthy. They make it look healthy. They tell you everything you want to hear, and you're buying it thinking it's healthy when it's really not. I teach you how to see right past their marketing deceptions, all in 3 one-on-one sessions with me, in-depth sessions. They're interactive, and you also get booklets with each one of those, and you get the recordings. This mini boot camp, I've had 3 people that I've given an insider look to this mini boot camp, spent 7 to 10 minutes on a quick Zoom call. I've showed them everything I have in the PDFs. Every single one of them has said that my boot camp is worth anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500. Imagine their surprise when they found out I'm offering my boot camp for only $75. But it's not going to stay there. My business coach and mentor is making me raise that price by the end of the year. So if I were you, I would jump in now, because spots are also limited. I only work with a certain amount of people at one time. And then once they're out, then I refill that jar, if you will. So get in now. With that, Claudia, do you have any last thoughts or comments that you want to say to anybody out there?
No, I mean, thank you so much for having me on your show, first of all. And yeah, in general, if people, like my content on my Cancer Diaries, just want to let them know to please follow me and on my blog and on my Instagram, because that's also going to help for the continuity of my business.
Amazing, amazing. Connect with Claudia, guys. She's got a phenomenal journey, and like I said, she not only conquered cancer, she's not only thriving right now, she punched it in the face. So, anyhow, guys, have a great rest of your day or evening, depending on where you are in the world and what time of day you're listening to this. I will talk to you on the next expert interview with Ken. Talk to you guys later.